Rayan had always liked quiet nights. His home was far from the city lights, a small house near the open fields where the wind moved like soft waves over the grass. The stars were bright that night, and he stood outside after dinner, sipping his tea, letting the cool air wash away the tiredness from another long day as a cargo pilot. It was the kind of night where nothing should have happened, yet everything changed in a single flash. Without warning, the sky split open with a brilliant white light. It was so sudden and so bright that Rayan dropped his cup, the crash echoing. On the porch, he raised his hand to shield his eyes, but the light grew bigger, forming a strange oval shape above the field. The air vibrated with a deep, heavy hum that made his chest ache. As the glow faded, something impossible came into view. A ship, silver and smooth, hovered silently above the ground. It had no windows, no wings, no sound except the faint hum. The air around it shimmered as if the heat of summer was bending. The light, but the night was cold. Rayan froze where he stood, his thoughts a mess of disbelief and fear. The side of the ship opened without a sound. A doorway of light spilled onto the grass, and from it stepped a figure tall and lean, its skin pale like moonlight and eyes as black as empty space. It moved slowly, every step deliberate, until it stood only a few meters away from Rayan. In its long arms it carried a small metal cage, no bigger than a lunchbox. The alien looked at him without blinking. Its voice was deep, almost like two voices speaking at once. "This will be your punishment." Rayan's heart pounded. Punishment for what? He had never seen this being before in his life. He wanted to ask, but before he could speak, the alien placed the cage on the ground. It tapped a finger on the top, and the door swung open.
Ow!
Something small stepped out. At first glance, it looked almost like an animal, but not one from Earth. It had soft fur, the color of burnt gold, ears that twitched in every direction, and eyes, far too large for its face, glowing faintly in the moonlight. It looked harmless, even a little cute. But there was something in the way it moved that made Rayan's skin prickle. It didn't scurry like a frightened creature. It walked with slow, careful steps, staring at him as though it already knew him. The alien ship behind them began to hum louder as if it was preparing to leave. The tall figure gave one last unreadable look to Rayan, then turned and stepped back into the doorway of light. Before Rayan could move or speak, the door closed and the ship rose into the air, climbed higher and higher until it vanished among the stars. Rayan was left standing in the cold field with nothing but the wind, the sound of his own breathing, and the strange little creature now sitting in front of him. They stared at each other in silence. Then the creature did something that made the hairs on Rayan's neck stand up. It smiled. The expression was almost human, too human, and in a soft, clear voice, it spoke in perfect English. "Let's play." Rayan took a step back. The voice was not high and squeaky like a small animal. It was calm, smooth, and far too intelligent. He tried to laugh, thinking maybe he was dreaming, but the creature tilted its head and kept smiling. Without warning, it turned and walked toward his porch, moving as if it belonged there. Rayan followed slowly, unsure whether to chase it away or lock it inside. He told himself it was probably harmless, maybe even a gift, though the word punishment kept echoing in his mind. The creature reached the porch and sat beside the broken cup, touching the spilled tea with one small hand. It sniffed its fingers, then looked back at Rayan with a curious tilt of its head. That was when Rayan noticed something strange about its eyes. The glow in them was shifting, swirling like liquid light. The wind picked up suddenly, and Rayan heard a faint noise behind him, a scratchy sound like claws on metal. He turned toward the field but saw nothing. The night was still, except for the whisper of grass. Then the sound came again, louder this time, and now it was clear it wasn't coming from the field at all. It was coming from inside his house. A slow shiver crawled down his spine as he looked from the creature on his porch to the closed door of his home. The door was locked. He had been outside the whole time. No one should be inside. The creature's smile widened, as if it could read his thoughts. And without looking away from him, it whispered again, in that soft, perfect English, "Let us play." Rayan unlocked the door slowly, his fingers tight on the handle. The scratching sound had stopped, but the silence inside felt heavy, like the air was holding its breath. The creature followed him in without asking, patting softly on the wooden floor. It moved like it had been here before, glancing at the furniture, sniffing the air, touching small things on the shelves with quick, curious hands. Rayan kept his eyes on it, half expecting it to leap at him, but instead it walked to the kitchen table and climbed onto a chair. It looked at him expectantly, as if waiting to be served. Not knowing what else to do, Rayan opened a cupboard and placed a plate of bread on the table. The creature sniffed it, then pushed it aside. It reached for an apple instead, biting into it with sharp little teeth. Juice dripped down its chin, but it never blinked, its glowing eyes fixed on Rayan. That night, Rayan lay in bed, trying to convince himself this was just some weird alien prank and that in the morning the creature would be gone. The house creaked in ways it never had before. Every so often he heard faint whispers, so soft they could have been the wind, except they came from inside the walls. Once, he heard the sound of something small running across the floor, but when he turned on the light, the room was empty. He checked the living room. The creature was sitting in the dark, staring out the window at the stars. By morning, Rayan's eyes burned from lack of sleep. He stepped outside for air, but froze when he saw the street. His neighbor's car was covered in deep scratches. The street lights were flickering, and a trash bin was tipped over with its contents scattered across the road. People stood outside talking in confused voices. Someone mentioned calling the police. Rayan's stomach twisted. He went back inside, and there was the creature eating cereal straight from the box. "You did this," Rayan said. The creature didn't stop chewing, just grinned, revealing those sharp teeth again. "They think I am trouble," it said calmly, "but they don't know. I am useful." Rayan stared, unsure if he had heard right. Before he could ask, the creature coughed suddenly, its small body shaking. Something hard clinked onto the table. It was a small glowing crystal, pulsing with soft blue light. Rayan reached out, but the crystal lifted into the air by itself. Spinning slowly, his heart raced. "What is that?" he asked. The creature leaned closer, its eyes reflecting the light. "A gift, a key, a weapon," it whispered. Before Rayan could respond, the crystal shot a thin beam of light into the air, and the beam started to change into shifting images. Planets burning, alien ships exploding, massive machines tearing through cities. Rayan stepped back, feeling his skin prickled. The creature's voice was calm, almost proud. "This is stolen. They want it back. You can keep it. If you keep me." The images faded, and the crystal floated down until it hovered between them. Rayan stared at it then. At the creature, his thoughts a storm of fear and curiosity. He opened his mouth to speak, but a sudden loud roar shook the ground beneath his feet. It was deep and unnatural, the kind of sound no human throat could make. The walls trembled, the windows rattled, and the creature's ears twitched sharply. Its eyes narrowed. "They are here," it said simply. Rayan's stomach tightened. "Who?" he asked, though part of him already knew. The creature looked at him for a long moment, then at the glowing crystal. "The ones who left me with you," it said. The roar came again, this time louder, and from outside, a shadow passed over the sunlight, streaming through the window. Rayan ran to the door and looked up. His mouth went dry. Hanging above the neighborhood was a massive shape, silver, smooth, and far larger than the one from last night. When he turned back, the creature was already holding the crystal tight against its chest, its fur bristling. "If they take me," it said in a quiet voice, "you will lose more than you think." The ground shook again as something heavy landed outside. Rayan could hear the hiss of machinery and the sharp clank of metal feet moving closer to his house. The creature hopped down from the table, its eyes glowing brighter than before. "Time to play," it said, and in the same instant, something began pounding on the door. The pounding on the door grew louder, shaking the frame with each hit. Rayan's instincts screamed at him to run, but his legs felt locked in place. The creature, still clutching the glowing crystal, turned its head toward the sound as if it were nothing more than rain on the roof. "I can leave," it said, "but only if you trust me." Rayan glanced toward the back door. thinking of escape, but before he could move, the front door burst inward with a violent crack. 3 metallic shapes stepped inside. They were tall, with bodies made of black alloy, their heads smooth and eyeless, their movements sharp and precise. Long, clawed hands hung at their sides. But Rayan noticed something worse. Each of them had a small, spinning device floating over their shoulder, projecting thin beams of red light that scanned the room. One beam slid over Rayan, paused for a second, then moved toward the creature. The moment the light touched it, the crystal in the creature's hands flared, sending a ripple of blue energy across the walls. The drones hissed, their bodies jerking like they'd been shocked. Rayan didn't think. He grabbed the creature by the arm and ran for the kitchen. The metallic shapes followed, their claws scraping against the walls as they moved. Rayan kicked the back door open and sprinted into the yard. The creature didn't resist. In fact, it ran faster than him, pulling him along. They darted across the grass, through a small gate, and into the narrow space between houses. Rayan's lungs burned, but the creature didn't slow. The sound of pounding metal feet echoed behind them. When they reached the alley, the creature suddenly stopped. Rayan turned, ready to yell at it to keep going, but it held up the crystal. The blue light pulsed again, and in front of them, a shimmering doorway appeared, like a curtain made of water standing upright. Inside, the creature said. Rayan hesitated. It looked unstable, like it could close at any second. The pounding footsteps were getting closer. Without giving him a choice, the creature shoved him through. Rayan stumbled and almost fell. But the ground under his feet was different, smooth and cold like polished stone. He looked around, gasping for breath, and realized they were no longer in the alley. He stood in a wide underground chamber, the walls covered in strange glowing symbols. The air was warmer here, and a low hum vibrated through the floor. The creature stepped through behind him, the doorway ceiling shut instantly. Rayan backed away from it. What is this place? The creature looked at the walls, almost like it was remembering something. Safe for now. Hidden tunnels. By others who fought them before. Rayan tried to steady his breathing, but the words sank in. Others had fought these aliens before. He looked at the crystal still in the creature's hands. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Why did they want that so badly? The creature's ears twitched, because it can open what they cannot. It is not just a key. It is a seed. Rayan frowned. A seed. The creature nodded slowly. Inside is power. It can grow into something that changes everything. Planets, ships, people. Eyes locked on Rayan's. I took it from them. They will burn worlds to take it back. Rayan tried to imagine the aliens destroying Earth just for this small object. His mind wanted to reject it, but the images the crystal had shown earlier came rushing back. He remembered the burning cities, the exploding ships. If that wasn't just a warning, it was a glimpse of what could come. Then why did they leave you with me? He asked. The creature's smile was strange, a mix of pride and something darker. They thought I would ruin you, make your life small, fill it with trouble until you begged for them to take me away. Its grip tightened on the crystal. But they don't understand humans. Rayan didn't know whether to feel insulted or uneasy. What happens now? The creature tilted its head, listening to something Rayan couldn't hear. Now they hunt harder. And you decide if you are only running or fighting. Before Rayan could answer, a deep metallic roar echoed through the chamber, rattling the glowing symbols on the walls. The creature's eyes flashed bright blue. They found the tunnels, it said. The hum beneath Rayan's feet turned into sharp vibrations like heavy drills tearing through the stone above them. Dust fell from the ceiling. The creature stepped forward, holding the crystal high. If we keep moving, I can hide us. But if they catch us here, there will be no running. Rayan swallowed hard. His heart was pounding, but something in the way the creature looked at him made his fear turn into something sharper. Then we move, he said. The creature's grin widened. Good. A section of the wall ahead shimmered like the doorway before, and without hesitation, the creature darted through. Rayan followed just as a section of the ceiling above them exploded, and one of the black metal hunters dropped into the chamber, its claws outstretched. Rayan stumbled through the shimmering doorway and landed on rough concrete. The sound of the explosion from the chamber still rang in his ears, followed by the metallic screech of the hunter that had almost caught him. The creature appeared right behind him, clutching the crystal to its chest, and the doorway closed like water swallowing itself. For a moment, there was silence except for Rayan's fast breathing. Then he realized where they were. Dim yellow lights flickered above long underground passages. The air was damp and the smell of rust and mold filled his nose. Pipes ran along the walls, dripping water into shallow puddles on the floor. "These are human tunnels," Rayan whispered. "Sewers?" The creature nodded slightly. "Yes, safer than the streets. For now." It started walking, its small paws silent against the concrete, but its ears twitched at every faint sound. Rayan followed, glancing behind him every few seconds, half expecting the hunters to burst through the wall. They moved deeper into the tunnels, taking turns without hesitation, as if the creature already knew the way. "You've been here before?" Rayan asked. "I learned fast," the creature replied without looking back. "Your world has many places where eyes cannot reach, but they have machines that will try." Rayan was about to ask what kind of machines, when a faint whirry noise started echoing through the tunnel. It was soft at first, almost like a fan, but growing louder with each step. The creature stopped and sniffed the air. Its fur bristled. "Drones," it said simply. They broke into a run. The whirry grew into a sharp, buzzing hum, bouncing off the walls. Ahead, the tunnel split into 3 paths. The creature took the left one without hesitation, pulling Rayan along. Just as they turned the corner, a bright red light swept over the floor where they had just been. A drone flew past the intersection, small and spherical with long mechanical arms ending in spinning blades. Sensors scanned in quick jerks, searching. Rayan's foot slipped in the water, but the creature kept him moving. "They will follow our heat," it said. "We need to lose the trail." It jumped up onto a narrow ledge along the wall and motioned for Rayan to do the same. They moved slowly now, careful to make no splashes. The whirry sound faded for a moment, but then a much deeper sound rumbled through the tunnel. A slow, pounding thud that Rayan could feel in his chest. "They brought a walker," the creature said. "Big machine. It's not fast, but it will crush anything in its path." The pounding grew closer. Rayan's heart raced. "He said you could hide." "Us," he whispered. The creature looked at him with a small smirk. "I can hide us from their eyes, but their ears. You must be quiet." It held the crystal out in front of it, and the blue glow expanded like a mist. The tunnel around them shimmered, and suddenly Rayan could no longer see his own hands clearly. Everything looked slightly bent, like heat haze. The creature grabbed his wrist and pulled him to a dark alcove. "Stay here. Don't move," it said. The pounding steps grew louder until the tunnel vibrated with each one. Then out of the shadows, a massive shape emerged. It was twice the height of a man, its legs thick and jointed like a spider's, but ending in steel pads that slammed into the ground. The body was covered in plates of dark armor, and on its front was a wide scanner that swept back and forth. With a harsh red light, stopped near them, the scanner passing over where Rayan stood. He held his breath, every muscle locked. The light lingered for a second, then moved on. After a tense pause, the walker continued down the tunnel, each step making the walls shudder. When the sound faded, Rayan exhaled slowly. The creature released his wrist. "They will not give up," it said. "If they take me, they will burn your planet to keep the crystal from you." Rayan stared at the faint blue light still glowing in the creature's hands. "Why keep me alive then? They could have killed me back at the house." "They don't want you dead yet," the creature replied. "They want you to break. They want you to hand me over yourself." It turned, starting to walk again. "Is why we must reach the old station before they cut off the tunnels." They kept moving, the air growing colder the deeper they went. Far ahead, Rayan saw a faint light, but before they could reach it, the worry sound of drones returned. This time, from both behind and ahead. The creature stopped, ears twitching, eyes narrowing. They are closing the trap. From the shadows ahead, the glow of red scanners appeared, and behind them, the pounding steps of the walker echoed once more. The creature looked at Rayon, its grin returning despite the danger. "We don't run this time," it said. "We fight." Rayon barely had time to process what the creature said before the first drone rounded the corner ahead, its red scanner slicing through the darkness like a blade. Behind them, the pounding steps of the walker drew closer, each one sending ripples. Through the shallow water, they were trapped, and Rayon knew it. The creature, however, didn't look afraid. Its eyes glowed brighter. The crystal in its hands pulsed with deep blue light. The first drone lunged forward, spinning blades ready, but the creature flung the crystal into the air. It floated between them, releasing a shockwave of blue energy that rippled across the tunnel walls. The drone jerked violently, its blades locking up, then crashed into the wall in a shower of sparks. Before Rayon could breathe, more drones appeared from the shadows, 4 in total. Surrounding them from both directions, Rayon's instincts screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. The creature darted forward with surprising speed, leaping onto one of the drones and ripping out the wiring beneath its sensor. The machine collapsed into the water with a hiss. Another drone swooped low toward Rayon, and for a second he froze until his years of working with cargo tools kicked in. He yanked the heavy wrench from his belt, swung hard, and smashed the drone's sensor panel. It spun out of control before crashing into a pipe, sending steam hissing into the air. The steam cloud thickened fast, blocking the scanner's view. "Keep moving," the creature shouted, grabbing the crystal midair and pulling Rayon toward a side tunnel. But before they could get far, the walker's massive form emerged from the steam behind them. Its red scanner pierced the haze, locking onto their heat signatures instantly. With a roar of grinding gears, it raised one of its heavy legs and slammed it down, shaking the ground so hard, Rayon stumbled to his knees. The creature didn't stop. It yanked Rayon to his feet and ran straight toward the walker. "Insane!" Rayon yelled. "It's huge!" But the creature's only answer was, "Bigger targets have bigger weaknesses." As they closed the distance, the walker swung one leg in an attempt to crush them. At the last second, the creature leapt onto the metal limb, claws digging in. It scrambled upward with impossible speed, reaching the walker's torso in seconds. The crystal pulsed brighter and brighter until it was almost blinding. Rayon watched in disbelief as the creature jammed the crystal into a narrow gap between the walker's armor plates. A burst of blue lightning shot through the machine, and it let out a metallic scream that rattled Rayon's teeth. Sparks erupted from every joint, and the walker staggered, legs flailing wildly before collapsing into the water with a crash that shook the tunnel. For a moment, all Rayon could hear was the hiss of steam and the crackle of fried circuits. Then the creature dropped down beside him, clutching the crystal once more. Its fur was damp, and its breathing heavy, but its grin was as sharp as ever. "See? Useful?" it said. Rayon shook his head, still catching his breath. "You're going to get us both killed." The creature tilted its head, eyes narrowing. "Not if you stop thinking like prey." Before Rayon could reply, a deep mechanical hum echoed through the tunnel, not from drones or walkers this time, but something larger, more deliberate. The creature's ears twitched. "They've sent the hunters themselves now. Not machines, soldiers." Rayon's pulse spiked. "I'm guessing they're not here to talk." The creature started walking quickly toward the faint light at the far end of the tunnel. "No. But if we reach the old station, I can give you something they won't expect to ship." That word stopped Rayon in his tracks. "You're telling me you've had a ship this whole time?" The creature didn't even look back. "Not mine. Stolen, like the crystal. And it can take us far from here." They hurried toward the light, the hum behind them growing louder with every step. The tunnel widened into a massive underground chamber, its ceiling supported by thick concrete beams. In the center sat a battered alien vessel, sleek but scarred, its silver hull marked with strange symbols. It was small enough to fit in the chamber, but large enough for two. Rayon barely had time to take in the sight, before a loud metallic clang echoed from the tunnel they had just left. Shadows moved against the wall, tall and thin, their shapes inhuman. The creature sprinted for the ship's ramp, shouting, "Inside now." Rayon followed, but just as he reached the ramp, a sharp, searing light filled the chamber. A beam of energy struck him in the side, and he cried out, collapsing to one knee. Pain surged through his body like fire. His vision blurred, and through the haze he saw dark alien figures stepping into the chamber, their black eyes fixed on him. The last thing he heard before the world tilted sideways was the creature's voice. Low and fierce, "You don't take what's mine." Rayon's vision swam as he tried to push himself up. The air smelled of scorched metal, and his side throbbed with every heartbeat. Dark, slender alien soldiers stepped into the chamber, their movements silent and precise. Their skin shimmered faintly under the dim lights, and their black eyes locked on him with a cold focus that made his stomach twist. Each carried a weapon shaped like a thin staff, the ends glowing with a faint red heat. The one in front, taller than the rest, tilted its head slightly, almost in curiosity. Its voice was deep, smooth, and sharp all at once. "Human, you cannot win. Hand over the troublemaker, and you will live." Rayon's breath was ragged, but before he could speak, a creature stepped in front of him, crystal clutched tight in its small hands. "You think I am trouble?" it said with a grin. "You never understood. Trouble fights back." The alien leader raised its staff, but the creature leapt forward before it could strike. The crystal blazed with blue light, releasing a shockwave that threw two soldiers back against the wall. Their weapons clattered to the floor, sparking. Rayon forced himself to his feet, ignoring the pain, and grabbed one of the fallen weapons. The grip was cold, almost sticky, and as soon as his fingers wrapped around it, the weapon's red glow brightened. One soldier lunged at him, swinging its own staff. But Rayon ducked under the strike and slammed the weapon's end into the alien's chest. A burst of red light flared, and the soldier dropped to the ground. Unmoving. The leader hissed something in a language Rayon didn't understand, and the remaining soldiers fanned out, trying to surround them. The creature darted across the chamber, moving so fast it was a blur. Knocking weapons aside and using the crystal's light to blind their scanners, Rayon kept close to the ship, striking at any soldier that came near. Sparks flew, the air filled with the hum of alien tech, and the concrete floor shook under the chaos. "Rayon now," the creature shouted. It had reached the ship's control panel and was already lowering the ramp fully. Rayon sprinted up it, covering the creature as it followed. The alien leader, unshaken by the fight, strode forward and hurled its staff like a spear. The weapon sliced through the air toward the creature, but Rayon grabbed it mid-flight, the impact jarring his arm. With a grunt, he spun and hurled it back. The staff struck the leader's chest, sending it staggering back into two of its soldiers. Inside the ship, the controls lit up as the creature slammed its paw against the main console. "Hold on," it said, and the vessel roared to life, a deep hum building beneath their feet. Outside, the aliens scrambled to regroup, but a burst of blue-white energy from the ship's hull blasted them backward. The ramp closed, sealing them in. The ship shot upward, smashing through the ceiling of the underground chamber in a storm of dust and debris. Rayon gripped the seat, feeling his stomach drop as they soared into the night sky. Below them, the city lights blurred into tiny points, then vanished as they broke through the clouds. "You had all this? And you didn't tell me?" Rayon said, still catching his breath. The creature smirked without looking away from the controls. "Would you have believed me?" Tapped the crystal into a slot on the console, and the ship's system surged with power. The stars ahead seemed to stretch, warping as the engines prepared for a jump. Rayon stared out the window, the reality sinking in. They were leaving Earth. "Where are we going?" he asked. The creature glanced at him, its eyes glinting, with something between mischief and warning. "Far enough to be safe. Close enough to be ready." Rayon frowned. "Ready for what?" The creature's grin widened. For the others, it flicked a switch, and the stars blurred into streaks of light as the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel. For a moment, there was only the soft hum of the engines. Rayon leaned back, exhausted but alive. Then the creature broke the silence. By the way, there are more like me. Not all of them will be as friendly. Rayhan stared at it, but before he could answer, a faint alarm began to beep on the console. On the forward display, a swarm of red signals appeared, clustered near the planet Mars. The creature's smile didn't fade. Looks like they've been waiting for us. The ship sped on into the darkness, and Rayhan realized his punishment had only just begun. Except now, he wasn't sure he minded.